Tokyo's history can be traced back over 400 years to the Edo period when it was known as Edo, meaning estuary. In 1603, the Tokugawa shogunate established its seat of power in Edo, transforming the city into the political and cultural center of Japan. Under the shogunate's rule, Edo flourished, attracting merchants, artisans, and scholars from across the country, laying the foundations for its future growth and prosperity. In 1868, following the Meiji Restoration, Japan underwent a period of rapid modernization and westernization. Edo was renamed Tokyo, meaning Eastern Capital, symbolizing its newfound status as the imperial capital of Japan. The city emerged as a symbol of Japan's embrace of modernity while retaining its rich cultural heritage. Throughout the 20th century, Tokyo experienced unprecedented growth and transformation, overcoming challenges such as natural disasters, wartime devastation, and economic upheavals. The city's resilience was evident in its rapid recovery and reconstruction following the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 and the devastation of World War II. Today, Tokyo stands as one of the world's leading global cities, renowned for its cutting-edge technology, vibrant pop culture, and timeless traditions. The city's skyline is dominated by towering skyscrapers, futuristic landmarks, and bustling neighborhoods, reflecting its status as a hub of innovation and commerce. Despite its modernity, Tokyo remains deeply rooted in tradition, with historic temples, shrines, and gardens scattered amidst the urban sprawl. Iconic landmarks such as the Senzoji Temple in Asakusa, the Meiji Shrine in Shibuya, and the Imperial Palace in Chiyoda offer glimpses into Japan's ancient past and spiritual heritage. Moreover, Tokyo's cultural scene is unrivaled, with world-class museums, theaters, and galleries showcasing the country's rich artistic legacy. From traditional kabuki and no performances to contemporary art exhibitions and anime conventions, the city offers a diverse array of cultural experiences for residents and visitors alike. Tokyo's culinary scene is equally diverse, with Michelin-starred restaurants, bustling izakayas, and street food stalls serving up a tantalizing array of Japanese cuisine. From sushi and tempura to ramen and okonomiyaki, the city's cultural offerings cater to every palate and preference. In conclusion, Tokyo's journey from ancient capital to modern metropolis is a testament to the resilience, innovation, and cultural richness of Japan. As a vibrant symbol of tradition and modernity, the city continues to captivate and inspire visitors from around the world, inviting them to explore its dynamic blend of past, present, and future. Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of the Travel Like Locals podcast. I'm your host, Alex Tabery. I was fortunate to visit Japan in the summer of 2017. I flew into Tokyo late at night, and after 5.5 hours of sleep in a capsule hotel, I headed out for my Mount Fuji and Lake Ashi bus tour. We headed to the 5th station of Mount Fuji, the highest accessible point by car, and explored a bit and saw many hikers preparing to begin their ascent. We then had a traditional lunch of raw fish and hoto, then took a short cruise through Lake Ashi before catching a lift to the top of one of the mountains. The following day, I hopped on a bullet train to Osaka to spend a few more days exploring. Can you really say you've been to Japan if you didn't try the sushi? If you'd like to watch me make this, you can find my recipe video on TikTok and Instagram at TLL_pod. For this episode, I've interviewed local tour guide Mariana. We talked about sushi etiquette, exotic animal cafes, and the best place to watch the Shibuya crossing. For all of Mariana's recommendations and more, be sure to check out my website, www.tllpod.com. But for now, on to the interview. All right, I'd like to welcome our next guest on the podcast, a tour guide from Tokyo, Japan, Mariana. Mariana, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
Of course. So could you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into being a tour guide?
Yeah, so I am Mexican, Japanese, and I lived all my life in Mexico, but I was always wondering about Japan because I obviously look very Japanese. So I moved here 5 years ago to pursue a master's degree in fine arts. And when I came to study, it was COVID. So all of the sudden, Japan was closed and everyone left.
Hmm.
So the few people that stayed, we were kind of like, we were kind of trapped in a bubble. Like, I don't know if you remember, but at that time, Japan was one of the countries that was most strict and
Hmm.
took them longer to open up. So it was a bit it was a bit crazy time at that time. And so I had this opportunity to start doing tours. And I thought it was a good chance to keep exploring Tokyo and meet people from other parts of the world. And that's exactly what I needed. So that's how I got into it.
Awesome. So, are there any like specific areas of tours that you give?
Yes, I have my two specialties that are Shibuya, Harajuku area, and Ueno area. I don't know if you're familiar with Tokyo, but these are my two main areas, the ones that are specialized the most in.
Really cool. So, I like to start out the podcast by basically listing some common myths about whatever city we're talking about. So, I found a few myths or maybe common misconceptions about Tokyo, and I just want you to tell us if they're true or not, basically.
Let's
So,
go.
all right, the first one is in Tokyo, you can buy anything in a vending machine.
Not true. um, there are vending machines everywhere because they are very convenient. Um, everyone needs a drink. So basically, we have drinks machines all over the city. We can get cold drinks and hot drinks. That's good. And there are some vending machines that have crazy things or like ramen or all these kinds of things, but they are very specific. You have to go to that place to get it. So it's not something that is common. You know what I mean?
So, what are some of the most unique vending machines that you've seen?
Mm, I mean, there is in here where I live, we have a vending machine that makes fresh orange juice. I don't know if it's
Hmm.
super unique, but it's kind of cool. But I like the vending machines that are kind of designy or
Hmm.
there are some shops that have special vending machines or artworks or things like this that I think are more interesting.
Very
I think.
cool. So the next myth is there are people that their entire job is to push you onto a busy train so they can fit as many people as possible.
Oh, okay, not true. I think like it got very hyped from YouTube videos or things like this like 10 years ago. But yeah, of course, Tokyo metropolitan area that expands through four prefectures has a population of 36 million people. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of people. That is true. And in the morning commute, everyone has to get to everyone has to get to a specific train, right? Because you have to get to your job at a certain
Mhm.
time. So of course there are certain trains that are very, very crowded. And in order for everyone to fit in, there might be a little bit of pushing. Yes. But
Mhm.
it's very specific to specific trains. I wouldn't say it's
Everyone.
like there is a person in charge of that. It's not like that. It's more a
Okay.
safe kind of thing.
Mhm. Makes
Yeah.
sense. The next one is Tokyo is very expensive.
Oh, this is a good point because actually the reason why Japan has become so popular in tourism lately is because from 2 years ago from now, the yen value dropped around 30%. So that means that
Mhm.
for foreigners, Japanese yen or everything in Japan is 30% off. So maybe
Hmm.
a few years ago, um, Tokyo was seen as a very expensive city, but nowadays, actually, it's the opposite. It's very, very cheap for foreigners.
Wow.
Yep.
And so the next one, I guess, tying into that is that Tokyo is a very cash-based society.
Yes, that is true. So, as you know, Japan is the country with the most elder population.
Mm-hmm.
So, this means that a lot of systems are difficult to update or innovate because
Mm-hmm.
these systems have been used for a long time. So, this conception that Japan is super futuristic or super technological is very from the 90s. Nowadays, we still have a lot of very analog systems, including cash.
Okay, no, that's great to know. And the final one is it's tough to find somebody who speaks English.
Mm, yeah, this is. I think a lot of people understand English and can express in English, and of course, being a tourist, you would go around into tourist areas, so it would
Mm-hmm.
be easier for people to speak in English. But yeah, it's not super common for sure. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that in your hotel or in tourist spots, you will definitely find English. Many restaurants as well nowadays, but yeah, it's not like a big thing. But now the government is really trying to implement more English programs into education. Yeah, that is a whole
Okay.
different topic, but yeah.
So basically, you're saying like the students now are more likely to learn English in school than they would have been before?
Yes, even up until my generation, most kids know how to read English, but
Mm-hmm.
people feel very self-aware or very shy speaking in English. So that's
Yeah.
why it's very common for Japanese people to kind of freak out when being spoken to in English because they don't feel
Mm-hmm.
confident about it. It's more about that, I'd say.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, when would you say is the best time for a tourist to come and visit Tokyo?
Okay, so in terms of weather, spring and fall is are the most ideal settings because it's not too cold and not too hot. In the summer, it gets really, really hot and humid, and in
Mm-hmm.
the winter, it's really cold. But at the same time, in spring is the cherry blossoms, so
Mm-hmm.
it's actually the highest point in the year. So each season has its pros and cons. Would you like to get a little bit more into it?
Sure, yeah. So, like, I guess right now is probably cherry blossom season.
Yes. So spring is cherry blossom season. The weather is really nice and the cherry blossoms are beautiful. But the cons is the highest peak and also Golden Week. So that means that there's a lot of crowds. And because there's so many people, it is very difficult sometimes to get into places. So there has to be a
Mm-hmm.
lot of planning in advance. Summer is really hot and humid, but there's a lot of really beautiful summer festivals, fireworks, the beach, barbecues, things like this. Fall has the best food. It's the
Mm.
harvest moon. The weather is really nice, and also there is the koyo is called, that is the fall leaves, the autumn leaves.
Mm.
It's very
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And winter is very cold, but we have snow. You can go ski. Um, there's the New Year celebrations and festivals. So I would say that there is not like a low season in Japan. There's
Mm-hmm.
always something to look forward to. So any season is good. But yeah,
And
the weather can be a bit.
yeah. And how long typically does the cherry blossom season last?
So cherry blossom is not only one cherry blossom, or one type of cherry blossom. There are many kinds of cherry blossoms. So, for example,
Okay.
1 month ago, one type of cherry blossom blossomed because this is
Mm-hmm.
a type that blossoms before earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But the peak season, that is another type of cherry blossom, it it starts in about 1 week, and it lasts like the high peak of cherry blossom season lasts about 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks, and we never
Okay.
know when it's going to be. So this is kind of
Mm,
tricky. You would have to plan for that for that
depending on
unexpected.
the year. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So this year it's early April. That's the high season.
Yes, exactly. But last year, cherry blossom peak season was now at the end of March. So a lot of people
Okay.
come this year now
Hmm.
expecting cherry
Mm,
blossoms, and it's not here yet.
it's
It's
unpredictable.
nature. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so on the extreme ends of the weather, how hot and how cold does it get in Tokyo?
So in the summer, the highest temperature, um, this thermic sensation can go up to 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much that
Okay.
is.
That's, yeah, I think that's about 110 Fahrenheit.
Yeah. And in the winter, the lowest could go to 0 degrees Celsius.
Okay. So right at freezing.
Yeah, very contrasting. So you need all
Hmm.
kinds of clothes.
But you said it does snow in Tokyo.
It does. Maybe
Hmm.
it depends on the year, but if it does snow in Tokyo, maybe it's 1 or 2 days a year.
Mm.
So usually Tokyo is not the place for snow per se. Some years ago, it used to snow a lot in Tokyo, but
Mm.
nowadays it doesn't. It's called global warming.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of places that you can go to from Tokyo to find
Hmm.
snow. Many places.
Cool. So we talked about the cherry blossom festivals, I guess. Are there any other major like holidays, festivals, events throughout the year that are worth traveling for?
Yes, I think New Year's festivals in temples are usually, it depends on the temple, but there's a lot of fires or burning things because
Mm.
these are Buddhist traditions,
Hmm.
and those are very interesting. So there's
Hmm.
a lot of little festivals that are very interesting. Also during October in Osaka, there is there is a festival where people run carrying big cars.
Hmm.
That one is very fun too. You can run behind the car. Yes, so many for sure.
Okay. Would you say most of them revolve around Buddhist traditions, or some are just kind of local things that have just been passed on?
I would say that most of them are from a religious background, not necessarily Buddhist. Yes, and mm, they're they're the festivals are usually about these religious beliefs that cherish nature and the seasons and things like this. So for Japanese people, the seasons are very important actually because each season has its own particularities and its own food, its own things, and Japanese people really appreciate those things.
Okay. And what would you say are the, I guess, primary religious makeup of Japan, I guess, as a whole?
So Japan has two main religions: is Buddhism and Shintoism.
Hmm.
So as you know, Buddhism is from India and it spread through China and Korea and then to Japan. So that is something that Japan has in common with a lot of Asian countries, of course. But the Shintoism is from Japan. So that is
Hmm.
what makes it a bit different from other countries. The fact that Shintoism, I mean, both religions have been kind of mixed and permeated through society. People will not identify the differences between both, maybe, but we say that people live by Shinto and die by Buddhism.
Hmm.
So religion is very it's very controversial in a way, but even though people will not identify as either religion, all of the traditions, all of the ceremonies, and the rituals are all religious based. So I would say that people are very religious and that society um, expresses a lot of religious beliefs, even though the society in itself or the individual itself wouldn't identify themselves as a specific religion.
Okay, very interesting. So we talked a bit about how outside of tourist areas, it might be tough to find somebody who speaks English. Are there any essential Japanese words and phrases that you like to teach people on your tours?
Yes. I think that, yeah, that's one of the things that would be important for tourists in Japan, to speak a few words even, because that
Hmm.
expresses a lot of intention. That's it. No, the intention is important. Arigato
Hmm.
gozaimasu. A lot of people say arigato just as thank you, but
Hmm.
arigato is very casual, I would say. So it's not very proper. So the ideal way of saying thank you is arigato gozaimasu.
Hmm.
Then before eating, we say itadakimasu, which means I am about to eat this food and I thank anyone or anything for this
Hmm.
food. And at the end of the meal, we say gochiso sama deshita, which means that it was very delicious and also like show appreciation for the food. So
Hmm.
even in restaurants or in any someone's house or anything, um, it shows appreciation for food, which is something that Japanese people like. And also, there's one very good word that is sumimasen, which means excuse me or sorry.
Hmm.
So in
Hmm.
Japan, even if you don't do anything wrong or someone bumps into you or whatever, you would say sumimasen. Sumimasen is very useful. Also for calling the waiter or something, you can use sumimasen, ask a question. You can use it in all types of situations. So I'd say sumimasen is a very important word.
Perfect. And I think bowing is something that people might somewhat associate with Japan. Could you talk to us, I guess, the tradition or just the customs surrounding bowing?
Right. So mm, there are many levels of bowing. There is many meanings of bowing. But in
Hmm.
general, because in Japan we don't shake hands or we don't hug or kiss to show affection, we bow. And bow expresses many things depending on what you would like to express. So a little bow, a long bow, bows, a lot of bows, these kinds of things. Um, you would use it depending on your feeling. But
Hmm.
if someone that never bows comes to Japan, will realize that everyone bows a lot. So maybe after a few days, you would start to bow. You would start to feel the sensation of how to bow a little bit.
Hmm.
Even, yeah, I don't know if I can say like too deeply into it, but it's just
Sure.
more sensational.
Just intuitive.
Yes, exactly.
So I think what I've heard is like, is it the deeper the bow, it's like the more respect you have for someone, kind of? Or,
Definitely. Yes.
okay.
So in a business environment, there there is a lot of bowing etiquette, so to speak.
Hmm.
But in a casual or touristic environment, just simple bows would be enough. But if you were to go to an experience with, I don't know, sumo wrestlers or monks or kind of more higher rank figures, it would be important for you
Hmm.
to show that kind of reverence.
Very good to know. So I guess being an island nation that was pretty independent for or kind of on its own for so long. Could you talk a bit about some of the cultural differences that are important for people coming from, we'll say, like Western cultures to be aware of?
Yes. So Japan was closed for 200 years. And in the late 1800s, it opened up to the world, right? And
Mhm.
so this has an impact in how society is. In, for example, the communication style. There is a book called um, the culture map.
Mm.
So one example with the US is a contrast with the US is in the US, a lot of people were immigrants, right? So the communication style has to be very direct. You
Mhm.
have to say what you think so you can understand each other. But in Japan, is the opposite, right? Because Japan was closed for such a long time, the communication style is very high context. You don't have to say everything for people to understand what you mean. So actually, the language itself is very subtle and has a lot of nuance.
Mhm.
That's why Japanese language is so difficult, because it's very much like a code within Japanese society, right? It's a way for Japanese people to know who you are in a way. So in Japan, there is a phrase that is reading the air, kuki o yomu, which means that in every situation, you always have to be reading the air.
Mm.
So even if a person doesn't say, or the situation itself doesn't necessarily say something, you should be able to notice certain things, or notice certain nuances for you to react to
Mhm.
that situation. Right? So reading
Okay.
the air, very important.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
so, in Japanese, there's also multiple different styles of writing, correct?
Okay, so I wouldn't say there are three vocabulary, three
Mm.
ABCs.
Okay, three like alphabets,
Three
or
al- we have three alphabets.
Mhm.
One is hiragana, katakana, and kanji. So kanji are characters that come from China.
Mm.
Um, it's very complex and it's very broad. So one kanji can have many, many, many meanings depending on the context, and also depending on which other kanji you're put it with. Very much like a code.
Mm.
Katakana is used specifically for words that don't come from Japanese. So, for example, words like coffee in Japanese is kohi,
Mm.
or door is doa. So, these words that don't come from Japanese, we use katakana. And
Hmm.
hiragana is kind of a complement of Japanese kanji. So, we use kanjis, and in the middle, we use hiragana as particles or
Mhm.
other kinds of Japanese words. But
Okay, so just in general text, all of them could be mixed together.
definitely.
Okay, very interesting. So I think in general, from what I've heard, Tokyo is a very safe place. Are there any precautions or maybe common tourist scams that people fall into that you like to highlight?
Yes, Japan is super safe. I really love that. You will, if you leave your bag somewhere, you will be able to find it most likely. Maybe you have really bad luck, but it's not common. Um, for tourist scams and things like this, of course, there's a lot of tourist traps, I would say.
Hmm.
O sea, people love Tsukiji Market, these kinds of places, and it's very fun and interesting place to go to. I would definitely recommend to go. But of course, the prices are a bit higher. That would be
Hmm.
the thing. I think a lot of tourists also want to experience certain things in Japan. So
Hmm.
if you want to look for trouble, it's very likely that you will find it. And that's the thing. Yeah. So there are certain areas where you could get scammed or you could get into trouble, but I'm not entirely sure. Like it's so common. It just I
Yeah.
know it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a whole, it's just a very safe place. For as massive as a city as it is, it's very impressive, honestly.
Yeah. But I have heard of some restaurants have an English menu with different prices. I've also heard of. I haven't seen it myself, but
Mhm.
I've heard of people. So maybe you should be careful with
Yeah,
that.
no,
That's
that.
about it.
Well, if that's all you have to worry about, I don't think. Yeah, that's too bad at all. So, in your opinion, where would you recommend a tourist to stay in Tokyo, or where should they just avoid completely?
um okay, so moving around in Tokyo is very easy by trains and metro. The system is super complex and it's very complicated at the beginning, but it's very efficient and it's definitely the best way to move around in Tokyo. So,
Hmm.
inside all of these very complex lines, there is one specific line that's called Yamanote Line, which is a circle that goes around all the main stations in Tokyo. So, if you are able to find a hotel in Yamanote Line, you would be able to move around in Tokyo very, very easily. So, Shibuya, Harajuku, Shinjuku, Ikebukuro, Ginza, Akihabara, these kinds of stations are very well
Hmm.
connected. And
Okay.
this is to avoid, I would say that sometimes, maybe for some other place, 20-minute walk from the station might not sound like a lot. But because in Tokyo you walk so much, you really don't want to have to walk 20 minutes every time you go to your hotel. So,
Hmm.
as close as possible to the station is definitely better.
Okay. And then, is there any time you would recommend somebody to say take a cab as opposed to taking the public transportation?
Yeah, so trains stop by 12, around 12. So if you want to
Mm.
go out at night, if you live very far or if you're staying very far, you have to stay until the first train, or taxis are very, very expensive. So you have to
Hmm.
stay until the morning, right? But if you're staying in a central area and you go out at night and you want to go back at 3, maybe the taxi is more expensive than other places, but it's still worth it. So I would say in that case, or if you have like very big luggage,
Mm.
would be important, but that's about it. Not
And
really.
so, is there Uber or Lyft, or is it just local taxis?
Yeah, there is Uber. We can order Ubers, but they are run by taxis actually.
Mm.
And
Okay.
in the main streets, you can always find taxis. So I don't know if you heard, but when Uber started, the taxi drivers in Japan started making their systems better so they would compete with Uber, and then Uber didn't take off that well.
Mm.
So yeah, taxis in Japan are amazing. Like they will open and close the door for you.
Hmm.
The drivers have gloves. It's very nice experience. So it's very recommended, but they are a bit expensive, I would say.
Yeah, so I was in Tokyo in 2017. Only really spent a couple days there, so there's a lot I didn't get to see. But I remember the flight that I took to come in got in just after the public transit closed, so I had to take a taxi. And I wasn't far from the airport. I think I was staying maybe a 10-minute drive or so. But I remember it was like $80, the equivalent, and I was just shocked. I was like, okay, I must be converting from the currency wrong because there's no way this is $80. But yeah, sure enough. But once I finally was able to take public transit the next day, then it was great. But that is one thing I would highly recommend people to keep in mind when looking at your flight times. But I feel like if you're coming in from say America, you'll probably come at an okay time. But yeah, I think I was flying in from Korea. So yeah, I just took the late cheap flight and ended up paying for it later.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah, so after 12, there's only taxis,
Hmm.
basically. Yeah. And it will cost
Yes.
you.
So once you're in, I guess the general area that you are trying to get to from your, um, let's see, public transit or taxi, is it very walkable in those areas?
Yes, Japan is very walkable. I also know that it's a common idea of people when coming to Japan that you walk a lot.
Hmm.
I think like as a tourist you will walk at least 10,000 steps a day. Um and it's very nice to walk actually. Like every street or every alley has something. So yeah, people walk a lot. Actually, when I never use high heels ever in Japan because you walk so much, like comfortable
Hmm.
shoes for sure is the way to
So
go.
I think one of the most famous or videographed area in Tokyo is the Shibuya crossing. For people who don't know, could you explain that?
Yes, of course. Shibuya Crossing is very famous, I would say, because of the movies, but also because it's very visually striking. It's
Mhm.
very visually impressive to see so many people crossing the street. I'm not completely sure about this, but it's supposed to be the most transited
Crosswalks. Hmm.
crosswalk in the world, and there is a lot of very good points of view of Shibuya Crossing. Um, and also it's very centric area. There's a lot of things to do around, and Shibuya in general is very commercial and very um, business area. So in general,
Hmm.
there's a lot of people, and now there's even more with tourists, right? So yeah, a good station to go to. I
So
really like.
for people who want to people watch and sit there and just watch all the, I guess, excitement unfold, you said there's some good vantage points. Which one, or would you recommend any specifically?
Yes, I mean a lot of people talk about the Starbucks, but today
Hmm.
the Starbucks is closed.
Hmm.
So it's not been that good for me. But they have before the Olympics, Tokyo built a couple of new towers around the area. So one of them is called Shibuya Scramble Square, and the other one is called Hikarie. So in these two buildings, the view for of Shibuya Crossing is very good and it's also very comfortable. So in Shibuya Scramble on the 12th floor, they have a resting area which is very beautiful and you can sit and watch and there's not a lot of people and there's restrooms and restaurants, so I always go there. I always take people there. It's very comfortable and you can rest after all that walking. And,
And
yeah.
so the Starbucks that's closed completely, or it's a temporary thing?
I'm sure they're renovating it because it's such a popular spot, but I think like before they closed it a lot of people would only go there to see the crossing. So I don't think that they really like that too much.
Hmm. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah, but around there's also some bars or cafes that have also a view of the crossing. Yeah,
Okay.
many
Could
places.
you talk a bit about the cafe culture in Tokyo? I think there's a lot of different unique cafes that people could find there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that Tokyo has become like a Disneyland, you know, the city in itself. So
Hmm.
there is so many things to see, so many cute things. Everything is meant to, so not everything, but of course, these tourist areas are meant to be like Disneyland, right?
Hmm.
So um, there are many things like in food, in coffee. Um, or shopping or things like this that are meant to be like that kind
Hmm.
of vibe. So please think about Disneyland. So, for example, the cat cafes, no, the animal cafes, it really started as a good initiative because in Japan, the apartments are very small and a lot of apartments don't let you have pets. And, there, this separation between humans, it's a real thing. And so the cat cafes started as that, no, as a cafe where there's a lot of cats and you can work, have Wi-Fi, have a coffee, and hang out with cats, which was very good, I think. And then it started becoming like, okay, dogs and like that. But now it has gotten out of control. Now you can find hedgehog cafes, mini pigs cafes, capybaras, meerkats, all sorts of uh, exotic animals. And I cannot say like they are being exploited. I don't know. I really
Hmm.
don't know. And it is definitely special experience for people to hang out with animals. And at the same time is like, I don't know, like this is gotten out of control, You go there,
Yeah,
pay for being there for 15 minutes, and then you go, it's not the experience of cafe. So
sure.
yeah, so like this in many things. And for example, themed cafes, they are cool, but also you have to make a reservation months before. And yeah, it has gotten really crazy in my
Hmm.
eyes. But there's definitely great cafes and good coffee. Like Japanese people really like good coffee.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it depends on what you are referring to or what you're interested in regarding coffee.
Okay. Are there any specific cafes that you would recommend or that you like to take people to?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person, but there's a
Hmm.
lot of very cool, stylish, like Melbourne type of cafes for sure. Very
Hmm.
Instagrammable. There's a lot of cafes that I called cute girl cafe, where like there's a lot of cute girls and like pastries and cakes and everything is very cute. Um, there's also kind of historical cafes. So one of my favorite cafes is called Kayaba Coffee, and it is a coffee shop that has been for 8 generations. And so in that block, they have a cafe, a gallery, and a restaurant. And the coffee is very good. The building is very beautiful. And on the second floor, you can sit in tatami and have good coffee. So that one is my favorite. I take people
Awesome.
there. Yes.
Perfect. So, along those same lines, what would you say are some of the must try dishes that people should have when they're in Tokyo?
I mean, I don't want to be, this is very expected, but sushi
Hmm.
is definitely the best. So it's very, very good. And there's a lot of excellent sushi places, right? There is sushi etiquette that people should be aware of,
Hmm.
especially in high-end sushi restaurants, because it's not only food, it's much more than that in a way. So
Hmm.
um, for me, sushi is the best, the most important part. As I don't know, as you know, like I think Japan is the country with most Michelin stars in the world.
Hmm.
So I think like in TikTok or Instagram or I don't know, there is a lot of specific restaurants that have become very hyped and very popular, right? In YouTube
Hmm.
and in TikTok. But actually you can find amazing food all over Tokyo. All over Tokyo you will find amazing food. So you don't have to go necessarily to the one that is very famous on TikTok to get the best, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
yeah, I think um anything you want. Of course, sushi and ramen are like, of course, super popular and
Yeah.
the ones that you can find the most of. I would say that other than that, I would really recommend yakiniku, that is like barbecue, and you
Mm.
have your own grill and you make your own meat and stuff,
Hmm.
really good meat. Um, Maybe izakaya food, that is like bar food. It's
Hmm.
also good to try, things like this.
Okay. Are there any specific like restaurants for say sushi, ramen, izakaya, these things that you like to recommend to people?
Mm, okay, because there's so many and
Yeah.
so many so good.
Hmm.
I would say that the one that is closest to you will be okay, but in mid-level range, like I would say in the cheaper side, that is very very good sushi. I really love one, but it's very hidden. It doesn't even
Mm.
have a sign or anything, so I don't know what's the name of it. Actually, interesting, but I can
That
look it up.
yeah, I mean if you want to send it to me later, I can link it on my website so people can find it. Unless you want to keep it hidden, then we can do that too.
Yeah, maybe that's better. Call me. I don't care. I will take you. No,
Okay.
I will send you some recommendations for sure.
Perfect. So, you talked a bit about how there's a specific sushi etiquette. Could you kind of go more into that?
Yes. So depending on the restaurant, it's not like it's our law, you know?
Hmm.
No, but in certain things, people might get a little bit more peculiar or icky about. For example, you should not wear perfume to sushi restaurants because
Hmm.
it not only affects your experience of sushi, but also other people's experience. So
Hmm.
I would say that that would be one reason for a restaurant to not let you in, even
Hmm.
for perfume specifically. Another
Hmm.
thing is you can take photos of sushi, but you cannot be on your phone while eating sushi because it's kind of
Hmm.
disrespectful. For example, these kinds of things like how you eat the sushi or how you take the sushi, there are many ways, you know, so that is not a big deal.
Hmm.
Or putting a lot of soy sauce to the sushi, to the nigiri, is not good because then you're not tasting the sushi. These
Yeah.
kinds of things I would say that we should be careful for, but specifically the perfume.
Okay. Good to
Mm.
know. So, meal times often vary a bit from country to country. And then so, if somebody wants to be more like a local, what are the common meal times in Tokyo?
Breakfast is usually at 7, 8 a.m. before going to work. Lunchtime is at 12, from 12 to 2, and dinner is around 6. So
Okay.
in Tokyo, around from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., a lot of restaurants close because they
Hmm.
have to prepare for dinner time. So if you want to eat at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, it's a little bit difficult to find a place to eat. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect. So, what are some of the must see places that people should go to when they're in Tokyo?
Yeah, to Disneyland. I mean, you want to go see the temple, you know? So for sure, Shibuya, Harajuku. Um, Shibuya has Shibuya Crossing, and it's also a very good place for shopping and eating and bars,
Mm.
nightlife. Harajuku has the Meiji Shrine, which is my favorite shrine in Tokyo. It is a shrine made for the Meiji Emperor and his wife, and it is in this beautiful park, so in the middle of the very chaotic city. So it is a very peaceful place. Um, and also you can see the contrast between this peacefulness and then Harajuku and pop culture and young people craziness, fashion, like that. And that is West Tokyo. This would be the the three main stations of West Tokyo would be Shinjuku, Harajuku, and Shibuya. And from
Mm.
East Tokyo, it would be, I would say, Akihabara, which is like the anime town,
Mm.
and Asakusa, that has the Sensoji Temple, which is the oldest and most visited Buddhist temple in Japan. And Asakusa area used to be kind of like a red district in Edo period. So
Mm.
it also it both sides have different vibe. So I would say these would be the main points. Nowadays, Tokyo has built new islands. We call them trash islands because they are made of trash, but they are beautiful places. It's called Odaiba, and they have really made it as Disneyland. Like they have all of this, like, it's so stupid, but even like the poop museum, miniature museum, technology museum, like they have a beach and a view to Tokyo that is beautiful. So Odaiba area has many things to do for kids, for adults. So that would be a new good area to look at. Team Lab, very popular
Okay.
place.
And is the Tokyo Skytree, is that a place you would recommend?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yes, the Tokyo Skytree or Tokyo Tower.
Hmm.
I prefer Tokyo Tower. For me, it's more beautiful. But
Hmm.
Tokyo Skytree is higher, and also it has a huge mall underneath with 300 shops. So also
Hmm.
for shopping, it's really good. They have all of the character shops, Pokemon, Ghibli, all of these things. You can find it in one place. So there's also an aquarium. So Tokyo Skytree has also many things to do around as a place.
Okay. And how many days would you recommend somebody to spend in Tokyo?
So I would say like the basic pack, which is these two main areas that I've told you about, would take
Hmm.
around 3 days. I think like if you really walk a lot and put a lot of effort, 3 days would be enough to see the
Hmm.
main areas of Tokyo. But right now, my best friend is staying here, and she stayed for 5 weeks, and she can really see each area and more. So it depends. Like you can really stay here for a week, and you can do something different each day. But to
Okay.
see the main things, I would say like 2 3 days would be enough.
And are there any day trips that you would recommend people to take from Tokyo?
Yes, there's many day trips. For example, Kamakura, which is the giant Buddha. And if you come in the
Mm.
summer, there's also a beach. So it's a good place to go to. We do it all the time.
Hmm.
Um, there's also Hakone. Hakone is about 2 hours away from Tokyo, but it's like the romantic getaway area. It's very beautiful.
Mm.
It has a volcano. It has a lake with view of Fujisan. It has a lot of onsens, great restaurants. It's very beautiful. Um, there's also going to Fuji, to Kawaguchiko.
Mm.
So in Fuji, the town in itself is beautiful because anywhere you go to, you can look at the Fuji. Really, really big, and it's very beautiful. And it also has a theme park that's called Fuji-Q Highland, which I really
Mm.
recommend. So there is a day trip pack online that includes
Hmm.
the bus, the entrance of the park, and the way back from Shinjuku for
Hmm.
like $60. So it's very
Okay.
good.
So when I was in Tokyo, I took a bus tour to Mount Fuji, and then we stopped by Lake Ashi. I think that's what it was called. And yeah, it was beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. Like you can go to the day trip or you can also stay for one night and walk around the lakes. It's so beautiful. In the autumn is amazing. Definitely. And if you want to go to the north, I would recommend going to Nikko, which is also a very historical place, and it has very famous and beautiful and old temples and sculptures. Actually, the very famous like emojis or sculpture of monkeys doing no see,
Mm-hmm.
no hear, no talk.
Yeah.
In
Ah,
fun fact,
cool.
yes.
Very cool. So, for anybody who might want to come to Japan to see sumo wrestling, do you have any tips for that?
I've never been to sumo, to be honest.
Okay.
But, sumo is seasonal. So there is the
Hmm.
sumo season that I think it's in the summer. So to see a real sumo match, to see the real sumo culture has to be in
Hmm.
season. But nowadays, because it's very popular, now they have like restaurants with live sumo or experiences where you can learn how to do like a sumo class, things like this that are available nowadays. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Good to know. Yeah, if you come in the winter, you might miss sumo wrestling. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, perfect. So, for anybody who wants to pick up a souvenir when they're in Tokyo, are there any specific shops or areas that you would recommend? And what are some of the most common souvenirs that you see?
Okay, so Japan, everything is a souvenir because there's so many cute things. It's insane, and Japan is super consumeristic society. So Shibuya is an area, but it's also a giant mall, basically.
Mhm.
So you can find cute things. I would say I would recommend not bring anything. Bring empty suitcases because you're gonna want to buy everything. It's so cute and beautiful
Mhm.
and very nicely made. So you can really find anything. Me personally, because you can find cute things everywhere. You want to think, okay, so what is the it makes it doesn't make it special, right? I think.
Mhm.
So there are two main places that I really, really love that are two malls, but they have a little twist on it. They have more design, more art into it. And I think that people who are interested in that can find more special things, which is one in Shibuya. It's called Parco, and Parco is a mall, but it has a very interesting history of when Parco was built in Shibuya is when there was this thing called the Parco style, and it's one of the points that started making Shibuya cool. So that is one, and the other one is in Harajuku. It's a mall called La Forette. So Harajuku in the early 2000s was known for the Harajuku style, like these girls dressed like dolls or like really cute.
Mhm.
And nowadays you can see hints of that, of course, but it has changed a lot and it has modernized a lot. But La Forette is one of the few spots in Harajuku that still maintains that spirit. And you can find really, really special things. And you can also see different like subculture styles.
Mhm.
So I would say that's very interesting. Souvenir wise, again, everything is souvenir. Like they're very, very famous and very like characters that we can all feel nostalgic about, like Pokemon or Dragon Ball or Hello Kitty, Sailor Moon, all of these Mario Bros, all of these characters or cartoons that a lot of us used to watch when we were younger, maybe.
Sure.
You can find everything from that. So
Mhm.
that is definitely something that you would like to get.
Mhm.
um, yeah, in Japan specifically, people always give food as a
Mm.
souvenir because there's a lot of appreciation for food, right? And
Mhm.
objects, you can buy your own objects, but food everyone can enjoy in a way. And
Sure.
also, you can find beautiful snacks, beautifully packed and designed snacks. So, yeah, those.
Awesome. Yeah. So when I was in college, I was part of an organization where we basically helped international students like who were studying abroad in Texas to just adjust to life there. And so my first mentee, his name was Ryota, and he was from Osaka. And so that's part of the reason I came to Japan in 2017. So after I spent a couple days in Tokyo, went down and visited him, and yeah, you can kind of see it there. That was my my gift from him, the fan that I think is very maybe famous as for Japan at least.
Yeah. Yeah, and very useful too in the summer.
Yes, especially in Texas.
Right. For sure. Yeah, like there are so many things, so many things. Chopsticks,
Mm.
um, the traditional dolls, or I
Hmm.
mean, if you go to Kyoto or Nara, you will find shops that have done this kind of fabric for 200 years, even if it's not um the best fabric, you'll be like, oh my god, like they have taken
That's
so
cool.
much care into this fabric. Oh my
Hmm.
god, I have to get it for everyone. Oh, I have one that I think it's very good. I would recommend buying nail clippers.
Mm.
I don't know, but I don't know in the US about the clippers, but in Mexico the nail clippers are so bad, and I've
Hmm.
had a Japanese nail clipper for over 15 years and still works really well. So, just saying.
Interesting. Yeah, there's one that you would not have thought of, so that's a great tip.
And it comes from samurai culture. So,
There you go. Makes it even cooler. Awesome. So, just to, I guess, start wrapping things up, is there anything else that you think somebody should know before coming to Tokyo for the first time?
mm, I mean, I could get really into many small things, but okay, but in a more uplifting point of view, I
Hmm.
would say that um, be ready to want to buy everything because you will find it very good quality and very cheap compared to other countries. Um, try everything. For example, I know that for example in the US, it's very common to go to a restaurant and be like, I want a sandwich, but no ham, no cheese, like this, like
Hmm.
personalizing your food. But in Japan, that is not a thing. Um, it shows respect to kind of accept the way
Yeah.
um, someone is presenting something to you. Yeah, so be respectful. I think that is the main thing. Um, that's something that is a bit complicated because it's one of the of course tourism is very positive in many things, but we cannot expect all the world to be open to us and to what we want. It doesn't work
Hmm.
that way, and that is like the downside of tourism, and that is has been it has become kind of an issue in Japan because a lot of local people don't like tourists anymore because of that.
Hmm.
Because I think in Japanese society, especially, people can trust Japanese people, but they don't feel that they can trust foreigners that much. And I also understand that. Also, I also understand that in a way. And yeah, let's be open and curious to other people's point of view. That's what tourism should be about.
I agree completely. It's a great message. There is one point I completely forgot to touch on, another myth I think that is associated with Tokyo, and that's that tipping is considered offensive.
Okay, let's touch on that. I mean, I work in service, and I
Hmm.
know a lot of people who works in service. No one will be offended, or that no one will not appreciate an extra tip. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Especially if you
Hmm.
are doing a service for a long time or going out of your way to do a certain service. But if you go to a restaurant or to a cafe, and you randomly give someone money, that would
Mhm.
be considered kind of rude. Yeah, because what are you saying? I don't know. I think it depends on the attitude also, but I've gone with tourists to little bars, like very, very tiny local bars where it's just us, one more person, and the person serving you, and you're having a very nice conversation. And at the end of the night, they want to give this person an extra tip, and everyone will appreciate that. It
Mhm.
shows also a kind of appreciation for their work. In that sense, I think it's a positive thing. But yeah, like just expecting to give out tips anywhere just randomly without any conscious, yeah, I think that would be considered rude.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to get that in. I'd completely forgotten about that one, but I think it's a good point for people coming from, say, America, where you tip for almost anything. Just keep in mind. But yeah, Mariana, this has been really great. Thank you so much. I've learned a ton. So if anybody is coming to Tokyo or wants to learn more about Tokyo, how can they connect with you?
So people can look me up on Instagram, Mariana Cameta with K. Um, yeah, something like that.
All right, easy enough. I will link everything that you have mentioned in this tour on my website, and I will add links on how to connect with Mariana. But yeah, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Come to Japan.
Yes. I hope you've enjoyed my interview with Mariana. Once again, for all of her recommendations and more, be sure to check out my website, www.tllpod.com. And if you'd like to learn how to make sushi, you can find my recipe video on TikTok and Instagram at tll_pod. Be sure to come back next week to see what city we dive into next. But until then, happy traveling.